My brother slept with my fiancée while I built Dad's business, so I walked away and watched them lose everything, while I finally started living my own life. I'm a 33-year-old male who grew up with my younger brother, Ethan, a 30-year-old male. From the outside, we appeared to have a normal family, but things were seriously messed up behind closed doors. Ethan was essentially the golden child from day one. He came into the world as a miracle baby because my mom had a complicated pregnancy with him. His first few years were tough. There were infections, breathing problems, and countless hospital trips. I remember sitting in those waiting rooms for hours, scared for my little brother. Even after he got better, my parents, especially my dad, continued to treat him like he was made of glass. Meanwhile, I was expected to be the perfect kid, starting at around 7 years old. I had to get straight A's, help around the house, and act like a mini adult. It was total garbage. If Ethan skipped school to rest or whatever, no one batted an eye. But if I was late to class, my dad would lose it. I remember getting detention for being late one time in high school, and my dad grounded me for a week. That same month, Ethan literally ditched school to hang out at the mall, and my parents barely said anything. What the heck? When I turned 15, I started working for my dad's plumbing business, not because I was particularly passionate about plumbing, but because it was the only way to get his attention. Surprisingly, I turned out to be pretty good at it. Watch my dad on complicated jobs, stay up late reading manuals, and watch YouTube videos to learn the trade. I was determined to master it, even if my original motivation was just to get my dad to notice me. Dad's business wasn't anything fancy, just a small operation doing residential repairs and some light commercial maintenance contracts in Cleveland. We had a small office, a couple of vans with the company logo, and about 5 to 6 guys working for us during the busy seasons. Dad started it from scratch about 35 years ago, and while it had a decent reputation in our part of town, it was nothing to write home about. It paid the bills and kept us comfortable. On the other hand, Ethan was smart when it suited him, but had zero work ethic. He played the sick kid card to get what he wanted. He tried college for a bit, but dropped out due to stress. Then he attempted a drop-shipping business that failed, followed by day trading, where he lost about $15,000 of Dad's investment money. Yet somehow, I was still the one getting lectured about supporting my brother and family first. Not going to lie, it was weird. I loved Ethan because he's my brother, but living with this situation was unbearable. We couldn't be more different. I was the serious, hard-working guy who cared about doing quality work, while he was the fun one who never faced any consequences for anything. By the time I was 20, I was basically running most of the day-to-day operations for the business. I was the one who showed up early to load the trucks, stayed late to finish paperwork, and was the one customers specifically requested because they knew I would do the job right the first time. While Dad still handled the big picture stuff and brought in most of the business through his connections, I was becoming the backbone of the company, a sole potential for growth beyond what Dad had built. I learned about water filtration systems, tankless water heaters, and commercial-grade installations on my own time. Dad was old school and preferred doing things the traditional way, but I pushed to modernize and take on bigger projects. When I suggested we expand into commercial kitchen installations or start offering maintenance contracts to apartment complexes, Dad would nod along but never fully commit. The funny part was that even when I landed new clients or nailed big projects, Dad somehow gave Ethan credit. He would say things like, "Ethan's charm helped with the client relationships because he answered the phone sometimes," or praise him for his innovative ideas, like suggesting we get a website in freaking 2025. One time, I spent weeks courting a big contract with a local restaurant chain that needed complete plumbing overhauls for 6 locations. I put together detailed proposals, met with the owners multiple times, and worked out a competitive bid that would still be profitable for us. When we landed the job worth about $85,000, Dad threw a little celebration at the office and actually toasted Ethan for helping organize the paperwork. Ethan, who had literally just stacked the proposal pages and put them in a folder. As soon as I saved enough money, got my own place about 20 minutes from my parents. It was close enough to help with the business, but far enough to have my own space. Nothing fancy, just a modest 3-bedroom ranch in a decent neighborhood that needed some TLC. I spent my weekends fixing it up, replacing the dated kitchen cabinets, and refinishing the hardwood floors that had been hidden under old carpet. It became my sanctuary, the one place where I didn't feel like I was competing for recognition. Things were looking up. I had my own house. Decent money came from learning new skills, and I even started thinking about getting my master plumber's license to eventually start my own business. I began to consider building something separate from the family drama, something that was just mine. This is when I met Olivia, a 29-year-old woman, about 6 years ago. I was working on a major bathroom renovation job at some fancy downtown condos where she worked as the property manager. The first time I saw her, she was arguing with some flooring guys for not following the building code. These guys were trying to cut corners on waterproofing in the bathroom, and she was not having it. I was impressed. She actually knew her stuff. Unlike other managers who just wanted to rush jobs and cut corners, I remember walking up after the flooring guys had scuttled away and saying something like, "Nice to see someone who actually cares about doing things right." She turned around, still fired up from the argument, and replied, "If you're not going to do it right, why bother doing it at all?" I thought, damn, where has this woman been all my life? Olivia had studied construction management and was genuinely interested in the work we were doing. She'd inspect our progress not in a bossy way, but because she wanted to learn. She told me she learned construction stuff from her dad, who was a general contractor. I shared my ideas about modernizing my dad's business, and we clicked right away. We even joked about starting a support group for responsible siblings since she had a similar family situation with a younger sister who could do no wrong after that project ended. Olivia called the office reporting an urgent plumbing problem at her apartment. Dad sent me to check it out, but when I got there was nothing wrong. She just wanted to see me again. Pretty smooth move, honestly. From there, we started dating. Olivia was different from other girls I'd been with. She didn't play games or expect me to read her mind. If something bothered her, she'd just say it. If she was happy, it showed. She was genuinely interested in my work, helped me study for my license exams, and eventually started assisting with the administrative side of the business. In less than a year, she set up a scheduling system, improved our billing, and created formal contracts to replace Dad's old handwritten quotes. Dad wasn't thrilled about changing from his pen and paper system, but even he had to admit the business was running better. We became more organized, more professional, and honestly, more profitable. We moved in together after 2 years. I cleared out the smallest bedroom in my house for her to use as a home office, and we started making the place ours. New paint colors, new furniture, and photos of us together on the walls. We began talking about getting married and having kids. Olivia would joke that our future kids would be plumbers and continue the family business. I thought I finally had everything figured out. At first, my family really liked Olivia. Mom would invite us over for dinner and ask Olivia for help with computer stuff or home renovation advice. Even Dad softened up when he saw how much she was helping to grow the business. We were landing bigger contracts, getting into commercial work, and building a solid reputation in Cleveland. Olivia even got along with my brother. When his constant mistakes would irritate me, she'd tell me to try to understand him better, saying his childhood health problems affected how he behaved. "He's trying in his own way," she'd say when I vented about him showing up late or messing up an order. I should have seen that red flag, but when you trust someone completely, it's hard to notice the warning signs. After 4 years together, we got engaged. Nothing fancy. I proposed at home after we finished planning a major plumbing renovation for a restaurant chain. We had been up late reviewing blueprints and coordinating with contractors, and it just felt right. We were partners in every way. I remember getting down on one knee in our living room, both of us still surrounded by blueprint pages and contract drafts. saying something like, "I know this isn't the most romantic setting, but this is us building something together, and I want to keep building with you forever." She cried and said yes. It was simple, no Instagram-worthy proposal, no fancy ring, though I did save up for a modest diamond. Just us making a commitment. We set the wedding date for the following spring, giving us about a year to plan and save up. Nothing extravagant. We were thinking maybe 75 people at most, somewhere outdoors if the weather cooperated. But about a year ago, I started noticing some weird stuff. Ethan had blown through Dad's money trying to launch a crypto trading business. And after coming back broke, Dad gave him a job at our office. At first, he just answered phones, filed papers, and scheduled appointments. But somehow, Ethan always managed to worm his way into doing more than expected. Meanwhile, Olivia started spending more time at my parents' house. She said she was helping Mom with wedding planning and that it was easier to focus on company paperwork there, since I was working in the field most days, trying to save for our future. It seemed logical at the time. As months went by, things became more suspicious. Around 8 months before everything blew up, I noticed small things that didn't add up. Olivia, who used to share everything with me, suddenly changed her phone password. We always knew each other's codes, but she said it was just for some banking app security update. I didn't think much of it at first, but then Ethan started acting different too. He began wearing cologne, showing up in new clothes, and actually coming to work on time, which was unheard of for him. He was weirdly polite, offered to stay late at the office, and suddenly seemed interested in learning the business. What really caught my attention was how Olivia started talking about Propsecute. My only lipstick, Ruby Kiss, Ruby Kiss, Ruby Kiss, only Ruby Kiss. Only Ruby Kiss has the luxurious. My scariest kiss, my skicked. Ethan. She'd get all excited talking about how well he managed the schedule and how smart he was when he applied himself. She'd get defensive whenever I pointed out any of his mistakes, even taking his side in family arguments. One Sunday dinner at my parents' place, Ethan messed up some numbers on a big estimate we were working on, potentially costing us thousands if I hadn't caught it. When I brought it up, Olivia jumped in with, "Everyone makes mistakes. At least he's trying to learn the business side of things." I remember looking at her, confused. This was the same woman who once spent 3 hours redoing a proposal because there was a $1.50 calculation error. The office vibe got weird too. We had this receptionist, Linda, who had been with us for 15 years and was like a second mom to us. She kept giving me weird looks. I couldn't figure it out. She'd start to say something when we were alone, then stop herself. One time she handed me a file and just said, "You're a good man. Remember that?" It was strange, but I was so busy with jobs that I didn't press her on it. Then one day, she called me into her office and closed the door. Linda was never one to beat around the bush, but that day she seemed nervous, fidgeting with her reading glasses. "Hey, have you noticed anything strange with Olivia and Ethan lately?" she asked carefully. I shrugged. "What do you mean?" Linda hesitated. They seem to be spending a lot of time together when you're out on jobs." "They're both working in the office," I said, feeling confused but also sensing something unsettling in my gut. "That's not what I mean," Linda said, looking uncomfortable. She took a deep breath, like she was steeling herself. "Listen, I care about you. You're like a son to me. Maybe you should come back early from your job tomorrow. Just see for yourself." I tried to get her to be more specific, but she wouldn't say anything else. She just patted my hand and said, "I hope I'm wrong." When I asked Olivia about it that night, trying to be casual, she brushed it off. "Linda's just being dramatic. You know how she gets with her drama. She's probably bored and making up stories in her head." I didn't fully buy it, but I also didn't want to believe anything else could be happening. Olivia was my fiancée, and Ethan was my brother. There are some lines you just don't cross. The next day, I told my crew I needed to grab some extra parts and left the Hartman project early. It was a big commercial bathroom remodel downtown, about 30 minutes from the office. I made up an Excuse about forgetting some specialty fittings and said I'd be back in an hour. When I got to the office, I went in through the back door that opens directly into the warehouse where we keep all our inventory. As I walked through toward the main office, I heard laughing from the break room Olivia and Ethan. They didn't hear me coming because of the radio playing. I stood in the doorway and watched as Ethan had his arm around Olivia's waistway, too close for a future brother-in-law. They were looking at something on her phone and laughing, his hand on the small of her back, fingers playing with the hem of her shirt. When they saw me, they jumped apart like they'd been shocked. "What's going on here?" I demanded, staring directly at Ethan and noticing every move he made. "Nothing, man. Just looking at some funny memes," Ethan stammered, his face turning red. Olivia nodded too eagerly. "Yeah, just taking a break. How's the Hartman job going? I thought you'd be there all day." I just stared at them, taking in every detail, how they stood too far apart now, how Olivia's cheeks were flushed, how Ethan couldn't meet my eyes. I didn't say another word. I just turned and walked out. I wasn't going to make a scene at the office, but I wasn't stupid either. I went back to the job site and finished my work like nothing had happened, but my mind was racing the whole time. That night, when I got home, Olivia was acting extra attentive, asking about my day and saying she was thinking about ordering my favorite takeout. Nothing was wrong. The next morning, I deliberately left my phone on the kitchen counter when I went to shower. When I came back, Olivia was on the other side of the room looking startled. I knew she'd been checking it. I said nothing, just got dressed and went to work. Later that day, Linda cornered me in the storage room. She had a determined look on her face, and I knew whatever was coming wasn't going to be good. "I'm sorry, but I can't watch this anymore," she said in a low voice. "They've been having an affair for months. Everyone knows, except you. I've seen them kissing in the parking lot when they think nobody's looking. Last month, they both took an extra long lunch and came back in the same car looking, well, you know. I couldn't let it keep going without telling you." I thanked her, my face stone cold. I'm not the type to lose my cool, but inside, I was raging. I spent the rest of the day going through the motions, focusing on the job at hand because that's what I do. I handle my business. That night, I confronted Olivia directly. No games, no traps, just straight up, "Are you sleeping with my brother?" I asked as soon as she walked in the door. She froze, then started stammering denials, but her face told me everything I needed to know. Linda told me everything. "Don't bother lying," I said, keeping my voice level. "How long?" Olivia broke down crying, claiming it only happened a few times and that it was a mistake. But when I pressed harder, the truth came out. They'd been seeing each other behind my back for at least 3 months. "I don't know how it happened," she sobbed. "We were working late at the office, and I'm so sorry. I didn't yell or throw things. That's not my style." I just told her, "Pack what you can carry tonight. You have until the weekend to get the rest of your stuff. I want you gone." She begged and pleaded, saying we could work it out, that it was over between her and Ethan, that she'd made a terrible mistake. But I didn't budge. When you cross a line like that, there's no going back. I've always been the kind of man who stands by his principles, and I wasn't about to start compromising now. "What about the wedding?" she asked, still crying. "We had deposits on a venue, a photographer, all that stuff." "I'll eat the costs," I said. "Consider it the price of finding out who you really are before it was too late." She moved out the next day, staying with a friend from work. I called the venue and the vendors, canceling everything. I lost about $3,000 in deposits, but honestly, that seemed like a small price to pay compared to a divorce later. I didn't contact Ethan or my parents. If Olivia wanted to tell them what happened, that was on her. And I knew if I met Ethan, I wouldn't leave him alive. So I just focused on work, keeping my head down and doing my job. A couple of guys at work noticed something was off, but I just said Olivia and I had broken up and left it at that. About 2 weeks after I kicked that cheater out, she called me crying and asked to meet. I agreed to see her at a coffee shop. Neutral territory, public place, no chance of her trying to manipulate me in private. She showed up looking terrible, like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wasn't wearing any makeup, which was unusual for her. "I'm pregnant," she blurted out before I even sat down. My heart stopped, not in a good way, not in the movies kind of way. It was like getting blindsided by a semi. My stomach dropped, and for a split second, my mind went to the worst possible place. What if it's mine? I felt my entire body go cold, being tied to her forever, to the woman who stabbed me in the back and then twisted the knife. That thought alone was enough to make me want to disappear. "What about Ethan?" I asked. Dad paused. "He and Olivia aren't together anymore. She left town last week, just disappeared. Left him a note saying not to contact her. We don't know where she is or anything about the baby." I honestly wasn't surprised. Olivia had always been ambitious. Once she realized Ethan wasn't the golden ticket she thought, she moved on. Classic. I thought about it for exactly 2 seconds before telling him, "Not my problem anymore." "But your mother. We might lose the house." Dad tried. "Mom's welcome to stay with me any time," I replied firmly. "You and Ethan can figure out your own arrangements." Dad started in with the usual guilt trip about family loyalty, but I cut him off. "Remember when I told you Ethan would destroy the business? Remember how you chose him anyway? Well, this is what you chose." A week later, just as I was settling into my new life, Olivia texted me out of nowhere. "The baby is yours. I have the test results. Ethan took all my money and disappeared. Please help me." I forwarded the message to my lawyer without replying to her. "If the baby is mine, I'll do right by my child." But Olivia burned that bridge with gasoline. 2 days later, Dad showed up at my house. He looked terrible, thinner, older, and defeated. Instead of driving his truck, he was in Mom's old sedan, which they had apparently sold to cover business debts. "Can we talk?" he asked. I let him in, partly so he could see how well I was doing without them. "My new place isn't huge, but it's mine, paid for with my own hard work." The living room was freshly painted, new furniture in place. Everything neat and organized, a stark contrast to the chaos I had left behind. Dad sat awkwardly on my couch and laid it all out. The business was bankrupt. 2 clients were suing. The bank was foreclosing on their house next month. He pulled out a folder of documents. "I'm signing the business over to you 100%, no conditions. You can save it," he said, pushing the papers toward me. 6 months ago, this would have been everything I wanted. The recognition, the control, the admission that I was right all along. Now, I just felt nothing. "What happened to Ethan?" I asked. Dad looked down, ashamed. "He cleaned out our savings account, about $28,000, and disappeared. Left a note saying he needed space to find himself." Classic Ethan, running away from his problems. Apparently, after Olivia left him, Ethan started spiraling, showing up to jobs drunk, missing appointments, making excuses. Then one day, he just didn't come home. He emptied their joint account and vanished. Didn't even take most of his clothes. "He's still your son," Dad added weakly. I looked him straight in the eye. "He stopped being my brother the day he betrayed me." Sound familiar? Dad flinched. He deserved it. He tried one more time. "If we worked together, we could rebuild me a family again." I laughed. "Dad, you're not listening. I don't want your failing business. I don't need your help. Doing great on my own." "But it's your legacy too," he insisted. I stood up. "My legacy is being the guy who stands on his own 2 feet. The guy who doesn't need a hand-me-down business from someone who never appreciated him anyway." Dad sat quietly for a long time, then asked in a defeated voice, "Where did I go wrong?" I could have listed a lifetime of favoritism toward Ethan, all the excuses, all the times they disregarded me, but I just said, "You didn't fail. You got exactly what you wanted, Ethan at the helm. You earned this." He left, looking 20 years older than when he arrived. Today, Mom texted that they're moving in with her sister in Columbus next month. "Dad will look for work there?" she asked. If I could host them and I repeated my offer, she's welcome anytime, but only her. I've been seeing someone new for a few weeks, taking it slow, doing things right. She's a project manager at one of the commercial sites where I've been working. Smart, straightforward, independent. She asked about my family, and I just said, we're not close. Maybe someday I'll tell her the whole story. As for Olivia and the baby, if it's mine, I'll step up. I'm not my brother. I don't run from responsibility, but I'll handle everything through lawyers. She made her choice. I don't feel happy seeing my family crash and burn. I don't feel sad either. I just feel free from the expectations, the comparisons, the constant need to prove myself to people who never saw my worth. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's moving on and building something better without them.